G'day, prospectors. Tony from Gold Talk, Leonora, stepping on landmines left, right, and centre. But anyway, no fear. So this is part two of the new ACH laws. Once again, it's certainly not advice; it's my own opinions. And what I'm trying to do is to show you how I go about things and get across to people that are ready to throw in prospecting and chuck all their gear in the bin and all the rest of it, that it really is not too bad. And if you are using handheld tools, metal detecting, there really has been next to no changes for you. So that's, I guess, what I'm trying to just show today. The thing is that you do have to, hopefully you've got a big cup of coffee with you as well. What you're going to need to do is understand that the new laws have come in as of 1st of July 2023, and there's very few changes between the new Act and the old Act in terms of how it affects metal detector operators and prospectors. I think some of the changes are actually positive. So there you go. The one thing I would say is that I don't know everything, so I'm showing you how it affects you, how I see it, and I'm sure if there's people with more information, feel free to chip in the comments and put your thoughts down. More information is always better than less. That's sort of my feeling on it. What you're going to need to do is a due diligence assessment, a DDA. That's another TLA, three-letter acronym. Going to need you to do your due diligence assessment. So it's one more hoop that you have to jump through. I don't think it's a big issue whatsoever. And when you really sort of think about it with prospecting, you've got to learn how to use a GPS and learn how to live out in the bush, and that there's a million things that you have to learn how to do for most people when they're starting off prospecting, and this is just another one of them. As always, I'm hopefully always coming from a place of respect, and I sort of feel that the Aboriginal cultural heritage is something that everyone in Australia owns. It's important to all of us, so I think it's well worth protecting. So the way we do our due diligence assessment is, first of all, we have to know where we're going. So we'll have a tenement in mind. Now, this could be a tenement that we have a 40E on. It could be, we're sitting at the local Leonora caravan park and we're going to head out to some tenements that have just gone pending. It doesn't matter sort of what the time frame is, but you just need to be aware of it, of where you are going. We go on to, and what I've done up in the search engine here is type in DPLH, which stands for the Department of Planning, Lands and Heritage, and we'll click on that. I'm just going to turn my phone off in case. I'm going to try and switch my phone off. There we go. So you can tell that all these videos are, there's no planning that goes into them whatsoever. Here we are on the DPLH website, and we're going to scroll down and we're going to look at Aboriginal Cultural Heritage Act 21. Clicking on that. And it gives you a whole lot of blurb there. If you want to read through that, that's fantastic. How am I impacted? There's probably the most interesting one is under the fact sheets, guidelines and exemptions. There's some flow charts. There's lots of things there that you can have a look at. But the one that you need to definitely look each time you want to go somewhere, find Aboriginal Cultural Heritage in WA. Click on that. A whole lot of stuff we can do, but what we're going to do is search the ACHIS, so the Aboriginal Cultural Heritage Inquiry System, and scroll down, search ACHIS now and click on that. I've decided just to do this live, even though it's a bit more boring and takes longer, but that way I'm not skipping any of the buttons that you have to press. I'm not a computer guy, so you can see exactly what I'm doing. So here we go. So what do we, okay, yes, probably just signing my life away. What do you want to do? Zoom to an area. It's a bit slow, but that's life. Riveting TV. Bloody hell. I can't get over these days that seems like a quarter of your life as a professional prospect you spend in front of a damn computer. That's ridiculous. Anyway. I was on the phone to one of the people that work at DPLH this morning, and I was having a bit of a laugh with him, and he was sort of saying that they're just copping an absolute pasting on the phones from people. And it's usually people that just haven't got a clue. It's just people get scared when they're ignorant, I guess. Okay, so over the side, zoom to. We're going to click on that little arrow doohickey thingy there. Box drops down, and we're going to look at mining tenement. The one quirk of this that may bring you unstuck is that you need to put a space between the whether it's a P or an E or an M or what have you, and the district number. So for example, the one I'm going to start with is P space, and then up here somewhere, so 39/6204. So I'm doing one of our tenements, and we're saying zoom to that place. Have another cup of coffee. And I'm going to zoom out a little bit. And this is basically in the Redcastle area. I've chosen this one because a lot of people go out this part of the world. And it's loading up, and I'm pulling out. Okay, so there's our little lease here. Now these are sites over here, all these pink bits. Okay, but if I have a look down on my block there is no registered sites on the ACHIS, so I'm good to go. I've done my due diligence, and basically that means there's no recorded ACH in the area, Aboriginal Cultural Heritage, whatever that may be. So I am now confident that there's no possibility of any disturbance, and I'm good to go. What I would be doing is I would be documenting this process, and I would be either printing out a map off this or just down on paper, so that due diligence assessment, access to whatever tenement number you have access to, searched through ACHIS on 17th of July at 12:13 p.m. no ACH shown, and that's your due diligence assessment done. Okay, we can complicate things a lot, but I don't think there's any need to, because if you look at the flow diagrams from the department, the DPLH, we've done what they're asking us to do. The other side of it, which is a bit trickier to get your head around, but this was the case before 1st of July 23, and it's certainly the case now, where we have, and that's anyone accessing Western Australia, we have a legal requirement to not disturb any Aboriginal cultural heritage, and it doesn't matter whether we know it's there or not. It doesn't matter whether it's on the inquiry system or not. We still have an obligation to not disturb it. And the way that works, and one of the most common complaints I get is, well, look, if it's not on the system, then it doesn't exist, and you can't sue us for it. Look, if you want to get into politics and go and try and change the legislation, good luck to you. I'm not sort of discussing the rights and wrongs. What I'm saying is this is the way it is, and the fact remains that you've got to be very careful not to harm any ACH. If you're caught doing so, it's very, very, very large fines. I think the thing is you're quite okay. There are guidelines in those fact sheets there on what to look for with ACH, and I think it's really interesting and well worth a read anyway. I think it's just like anything, it's being aware of your surroundings and noticing things that are different, and to be honest, that's what prospectors do very well out in the bush anyway. And if there's something there that you're sort of not understanding what it is, just leave it alone. There's some fantastic old timers, like maybe old stockyards or wells or something like that out there, and it's the same thing. It's not that they're necessarily documented, but they're beautiful objects of Australian history, and we don't want people going and buggering it up. And that's sort of where I'm coming from, understanding all of this. So as I said, you've got the two sides. We've done our DDA, our due diligence assessment, but we also need to understand there's a certain amount of risk involved in that. We are still not allowed to disturb anything, whether it's there or not, whether we know it or not, doesn't matter, we can't do it. Okay, so we just have to be on our toes with that regard. Let's go to another place. What do you want to do? We want to zoom to a mining tenement again. And which one do we want to go to? We're going to go to M space 37-586. And this is just a tenement where out at a place called the Horse Paddock, where people that have done training courses with us get access to it for a month. And you can see that there's lots of intersections with registered sites. Now, down the bottom, there's one here, there, another one here, here. It's all over the place. Now, if we wanted to find out information about any of these sites, we usually can. And what I'm doing is I'm right-clicking on that site down the bottom, find data on the map. ACH Directory. Okay, called Jasper Hill. Okay, artifacts, scattered artifacts in a quarry. Oopsies. Goldfields, no gender restrictions. Right, very straightforward. And what I've found, and it's not always the case, but most of the time, this is your registered site. It's usually sort of in the middle of that registered site, and these zones around it, look, I call them a buffer zone. I know you're not meant to call them that, but that's just what I call them in my Tony brain. That's sort of lets you know that there's something in the area. So we can find out quite a bit about it. Often there's GPS coordinates, that sort of thing. But let's say that you've done a course with us and you have access to this tenement. How does this affect you? Because there's obviously intersections with registered sites all over it. Okay. Well, the bottom line is this. Your due diligence assessment is about understanding that there's ACH in the area, and then the second part of that is not disturbing it or not harming it. So all you need to do is understand that this is there, and that's all. With your West Australian miners right, you can still you are in what's called Tier 1 activities, and they are basically exempt activities as long as you're using handheld tools. So metal detecting using handheld tools, picks, rakes, shovels, etc., is Tier 1 and is exempt. And that means you don't really have to worry about too much at all. So you can pass and repass over any of these areas, okay, without a lot of consideration at all. You can pass and repass as much as you like. You can also camp on any of these areas, again, as long as under the Mining Act you have permission to prospect, then you automatically have permission to camp. And there's nothing in the new ACH Act that says you can't camp. So you can camp here in a swag, a tent, camper trailer, caravan, etc. That's no worries at all. You can also metal detect. You can walk over this ground, you can dig a hole with a handheld tool, a pick or what have you, and find a little bit of gold and cover it up. There really is just no issues whatsoever. So everything that we have been doing is exactly the same. We can do it. The thing is, what I would suggest is the obligation you have is not to hurt any ACH, and I think it also comes down to a respect thing as well. Now, for example, here on this particular one, it's listed as a quartz dike, and when you actually get out onto the ground, you can see a dirty great big quartz reef, a dike that's running basically through the middle of this site. So the thing is, whilst you have you can walk over it, you can do what you like. I personally would just leave it alone. Just give it 50 metres. Just give it 100 metres. It's important to someone, and I wouldn't camp on it. I wouldn't disturb it. I'd just leave it alone. And I think that's in your own best interest too as well. It's not so much about getting any repercussions, but your obligation is to not harm ACH. If you know it's there, give it a wide berth. You've got another 1 million acres either side of it that you can prospect on. And that's pretty much it. You need to do your due diligence assessment. And to do that, we have a look at the Aboriginal Cultural Heritage Inquiry System, which we're on at the moment. We investigate the tenement or the tenements we have access to. We take note of where the listed registered sites are. And we just either avoid some of those areas, or we just understand that there may be ACH in the area, so we may not use a rake in that particular area. We'll just go in there with our metal detectors and have a bush chook around. That really is it. And as I said, I would document all of this before you enter these areas. I think that's just a sensible thing to do. It really, thanks to the work of a lot of people, particularly within the Amalgamated Prospectors and Leaseholders Association in APLA, it really is no different with the new laws. It doesn't make any difference at all to metal detector operators. Potentially there are a few more complications to that, but decidedly I'm keeping things as simple as possible. That's all you have to do. Prospectors, I hope that's of some help. The third vid I'm going to do is regarding Tier 3 activities. So where you're doing, where prospectors operating machinery on a tenement. And the good news is there's very little change there as well. But I'll go through that in another video because I know a number of people are quite concerned about that. So thank you very much for your time to listen. If you've got any questions, just put them down in the comments or send us an email. If I can help out, I will. Cheers, prospectors. Take care. Now I've got to find out how to turn the bloody thing off. Whoop, hello.